Many men I've loved, dear, many men I've lost. In the time of night, dear, to remember not. In the ancient valleys of scriptures and of time, I'll tell the ancient prophets of the time that you were mine. There is a fly trapped between the two panes of glass in my window, and I am observing it slowly die. It's trying to walk, still, to walk upward, one weak little leg at a time, and after each attempt, back down it falls. If this is a metaphor, it is one I choose to ignore. Lane looked across the mini table and out the window. His dad had recently put new curtains up, and they were exactly the right size. The pink thread along the fabric's edge turned its perimeter into a parade of white squares. These three-walled boxes reminded Lane of teeth. Teeth with gums that come down too far and wrap around the bottom of each tooth. It would be hard to floss those, thought Lane. Lane had gone to the dentist last Tuesday and was heartily encouraged to floss, so it was on his mind. Or rather, the tautness of Dr. Potter's hamburger-printed scrubs across her chest, that was on his mind. And the way she had said, "Open for me." She'd used a Fairmont High Dust Devil's pen to make some notes on the state of his mouth, meaning that she had probably gone to the same high school he was now attending, meaning they probably had something to talk about. Maybe she also ran track. Ugh, thought Lane. You can't write your first writing assignment about some creeped-out dentist fantasy. You just can't. But when Lane was in second grade, his dad had come in for Parent Week and taught his parent-led session on Bob Dylan appreciation. He played the entirety of Nashville Skyline, turned up all the way on the school's tired boombox, while the kids free wrote what the music made them feel. It seemed like Lane had had plenty to write about then. Not that he remembered specifically, but that was right after his mom had moved in with her sister in Albuquerque. And she was still coming around the old house to get her stuff and look at him and say things like, "God, you're going to grow up." No doubt Lane had written some sentimental reflection on his mother's confusing absence. He could probably find the paper somewhere if he tried. His dad insisted on saving all of Lane's childhood memorabilia, being what women call, for better or for worse, sentimental. Lane got up and looked in the imitation wood cabinet for a snack. Nothing but stale Triscuits inside. It was Monday, after all. The camper van smelled of bacon grease and cigarettes, but it was pretty clean, really, and looked nice and bright with the new curtains. The jumbled shrine of driftwood, cactus spurs, cracked shells, and dried flowers that his dad visited daily on the dashboard actually was a comfort for Lane. He hadn't been lying when he told the social workers how much he liked living in an RV with his old man. Really, he hadn't. Sitting back down, he lit a Cools and thought, details. The packet said details. Fiction proceeds by details. He smoked for a minute in stop-motion thought. Gold chain lock on the door, wrinkled jean jacket, grandma purple stripes, 5-inch foam pad. Then stood up quickly, took a step as if to receive the Triscuits, didn't, and then abruptly sat back down. The mid-afternoon light came through the new curtains in a strange, silvery wave. Like sci-fi light, thought Lane, bringing something. Things outside were still and quiet, except for Mrs. Murray calling from her front step and a flowered muumuu and pink slippers for Harold. Lane squinted through the window and thought, fuck it. then said out loud, "Fuck it," and then began to write. White teeth with pink stringy roots hung from the ceiling of the underground room. They cowered together, her eyes scared, his growing used to the strange dim light. "I never would have taken a patient to this secret dungeon if it weren't for..." She let out a wail. "Oh!" And then, "If only the hamburgers on my chest were edible. We'll starve down here." As she pressed her body against his, they both winced at the sounds of scrabbling above. Water! Yes, water sounds great. How have you been? Water's always a good way to start. Are you working now? Yeah, construction. Water. I'll have some more water, please. Thanks. Just water for me. I've got to work tomorrow. You're working, are you? 6 days a week, here and there. Oh, could we have a towel for the water we've spilled? And some more water, please. The history here is so rich. Yes, I'm actually from Maryland. Do you work here? Are you ladies eating? What a dinky salad. Have you worked here long? What do you paint? I don't paint. Oh, I thought you said you paint. Is that man in the plaid shirt famous? Is that man wearing a plaid shirt? Many men I've loved, dear, many men I've lost. When the time of night has come to remember not. In the ancient scriptures and the valley of old times, I'll tell the ancient prophets of the time that you were mine. It becomes apparent that the electron is interfering with itself. There is indication of interference, though there is only one electron in the system at any given time. It is as if a single electron passes through both slits at once. Barlam saw an unbreachable schism between the created world and God the Creator, whereas Palamas defined the relationship between the two as capable of unification through man's unceasing prayer and contemplation. Palamas distinguished between the essence of God, the uncreated and incomprehensible nature of God, conceivable by man only after death and deification, and the uncreated energies of God, manifested in the Holy Trinity and understood by man during his earthly life through intensive prayer. The difference between uncreated and created energies can be defined as the difference between the Holy Trinity, uncreated energies, and an angel, created energies, in that an angel is knowable via thought processes of the mind, whereas the nature of the Holy Trinity is knowable only by virtue of experiences that transcend the mind. One cannot think of the Holy Trinity and know the Holy Trinity, but one may think of an angel and correctly understand what an angel is. It is a Tuesday night, and the man sitting at the table in the front left corner dines with what appears to be his wife and daughter, a family of 3. They've ordered a bottle of wine. Do we have one? There. Not the nicest wine, but still a nice bottle, and the conversation is regular but unimpassioned. They're eating consistently with intention, the transfer of food executed with regularity. Let's say a bite every minute and 10 seconds, not fast, just a simple rhythm of cut, scrape, bite, chew, speak. We might call it habitual. The small bird-like mother looks at each bite of food before she puts it to her mouth, a practice rooted either in a tiny and natural neurosis or perhaps carried on residually from some long-repressed trauma of consuming disguised in food what is not food, perhaps a small piece of glass or a stone, maybe remembered now and then in a molar cap, the tooth in the back of her mouth that gives her trouble. The daughter is pretty but not stunning, too obviously an offspring of this pair for her appearance to carry any real weight on its own. She's nice to look at when she's put in front of you, but you wouldn't dream her up out of thin air or seek her out for the purpose just of looking at her. The man, a gentle patriarch with soft-looking ears that hang lower than most and a fleshy smile, mobile rolls of fat around the face, crevices in the mouth sides, and eyes peeking out calmly and assuredly. Not bad eyes, gray-blue eyes, well-lashed. All of this at the far end of a torso that houses a paunch folded softly over his belt, not the hard, round belly often found of men on his age or older, but more like a filled-up flap of extra skin, hanging noticeably but not offensively, even in its hanging not appearing to hold much weight, the light, airy fat of a concession here and there, and Sundays off, and contentment. He looks fondly at his wife and daughter. The daughter now and then pushing back her mass of dark curls behind her ear with a flattened palm, a strangely childlike gesture. A strangely childlike gesture, take two, and glancing around the courtyard somewhat anxiously. Attention only half focused on her parents, their conversations they've all had and had all times before, but through the repetition she is enjoying herself. The food is good and the courtyard is absolutely lovely. Dimly lit and lush and green, too romantic, she thinks, for a dinner with her parents. But what can you expect from this father? A father always oblivious to other people's loneliness, a lover but not an empathizer, immune, never the father who would obsess and fret over her beauty, but nonetheless the father she had. Acting in good graces this evening, in fact, ordering not the cheapest wine in a place like this, and overall exhibiting well-managed and courteous middle-class consumer skills. A subtle blend of entitlement and self-awareness, as if to say, yes, I deserve to be here, but I am mindful of and feel for those who can't. These thoughts take shape inarticulately in the daughter's heads as she turns to the dear patriarch, who sometimes does look so bewildered by the customs of 21st century society, in order to ask that he speak maybe just a hair more quietly. They are positioned rather close to that other table who might be overhearing the total and utter mundaneness of their conversation, when the father now in actual fact breaks from the cut, scrape, bite, chew, speak rhythm by putting a hand to his stomach and a hand to his throat, the stomach hand resting above the belted flap and pressureless, placed atop, and the throat hand massaging ever so slightly, hands placed in a quick instant and eyes made big with a silent dread, unable to articulate save for a muttered, "Oh God." As an invocation of concern begins in wife and daughter, but before it can take meaning or form, a fleshy belch has escaped from the gentle patriarch's lips, and a head attached to his neck has whipped around to the building of the restaurant behind him. They are, in fact, the farthest table from the interior of the restaurant, and legs protruding from his soft belly have propelled him upwards and knocked over the chair behind him, carried him then quickly and determinedly to a planter box in the farthest corner of the courtyard. Those legs have then remained upright as his torso has folded over, and from that torso has begun to heave the first sticky reversals of his intestinal system. And so the father begins to vomit. And as he's retching, no doubt, into this flower box, his wife and daughter react, what appears to be slowly, a thought process in which perhaps the idea is that there's no need to embarrass him further. Comfort will be no comfort in a situation such as this. Viscous beige spew pools in the recently planted hydrangea bushes, these bushes which have barely even begun to get used to the mechanics of rooting, and the manager peeking out of the window of his office thinks in a veil of panic, oh, perhaps this wretched upchuck will get into the soil and act as fertilizer. After all, isn't that how compost works? Not considering the bitter, alkaline, green-yellow bile, not considering the detrimental effects this acidic fluid would likely have on fledgling hydrangea. However, this thought process a testament to the fact that this manager has always been good at finding the silver lining, even if that lining is actually just more of the same shitty cloud, and for this reason never fires anyone until they wholly and obviously sabotage themselves. And the esoteric and oft-forgotten colloquialism to spew one's grits takes on an ironic allegiance to the reality of the situation, the man having eaten grits under a creamy corn and sausage gravy, and the refuse hurling itself out of his flushed and sweating face, having retained the exact color and consistency of its pre-consumption state, causing the manager to think in shock and awe and wonder how much it looks exactly like what is on the other patrons' plates. A ragged reminder, there and gone, of the time his stepmother tried to make him eat his own freshly vomited vomit off the kitchen floor. A lesson, the stepmother, yes, abusive, but too stupid to be cruel, tawdry in her molestations. And people now noticing the deluge, of course, but not staring, pushing away their plates, maybe almost out of respect, if respect can be born of disgust and embarrassment. And the torrent seeming now to have gotten all that was in to come out, the man retching and gagging up fluid and spit that hangs from his mouth in thin, elastic-looking strands, stretching and dragging to the ground, falling now and then to join the slop below. He now crouches in the corner as the moment intercepts time, and he wonders in that moment if this is an exact replica of transcendence into sainthood, every contour of the drooping, soaked hydrangea bush, an imitation of the cross. Humiliation upon humility. Never a proud man he was, never. And people here and there stand up either to say or as if to say, should we get help? What do we do? Where's the manager? And the thought suddenly flashes across the hidden manager's mind, a mind not suspicious by nature. Could this wildly vomiting man somehow be a decoy? A scam? A heist? That's all.